Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Photoshop Adventures with G and Matt.
Woo!
This is the show where we explore the magical world of Photoshop. I'm Matt, and with me on the show is the wonderful G Greenslade. How are you tonight?
Hello! I'm good. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. That sounds very enthusiastic. Yes.
It's very enthusiastic.
We are
So,
enthusiastic.
I thought for our first episode, we may as well do some introductions.
Yay.
So, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, me. All right. So I'm a photographer and mostly a digital retouch artist. So I work for a lot of photographic companies here in Adelaide, just retouching portraits and stuff like that. But I'm also a visual artist, and I do one-on-one Photoshop workshops, and I exhibit and all that sort of stuff. So I'm a genuine Photoshop lover. And what do you do, Matt?
I am one half of the Manic Game Studios team.
Yay!
So I make video games for a living. We previously released one game called Critical Mass, which is on Steam. So if you haven't picked it up, go and check it out.
Do it. It's fun and addictive, and you'll probably lose a day of your life, but you'll love it. Anyway, sorry. I shouldn't do that. I should
So
stop
yeah,
doing that.
I've got a background in digital art, 3D art, and lots of Photoshop all over the place. So yeah, that's me. So, G, would you like to give us a bit of a quick rundown of the content that we've got for everyone tonight?
All right, so tonight we're going to go into, we have a segment called Photoshop for Mad Noobs, and that's all about, tonight, it's sort of the beginner stuff, so we're going to talk about selections and all the different types of selections, and we'll only kind of scratch the surface, but and we'll go more into it later in the season, but yeah, tonight it's marquees and lassos and all that sort of stuff. Then we're going to talk about life-saving tips. A few years ago, Matt and I sort of started to share our favourite sort of tips in Photoshop that we're using every day, and we found it came up with some really, I don't know, we've both now share the same life-saving Photoshop tips and shortcuts and stuff like that. So we're going to have a 5-minute segment on that. Then there's Photoshop for Crazy Nerds, which is where we kind of really dig into it, and tonight we're talking about non-destructive workflow. We thought we'd sort of start at the beginning of all the crazy stuff. And we think that's really, really important. And then we've got the ban hammer, which is stuff that we're just going to ban you from doing, that you're not allowed to do. So, and then after that, that'll be finishing up at around, or the ban hammer will start at about 9:05, and at about, we're going to have a break for 10 minutes, and at 9:15, we're going to do like a Photoshop freeform where I'm just going to do some work on a photo that I'm working on at the moment, and you guys can ask questions and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yay.
Well, let's jump straight into it. Photoshop for Mad Noobs.
Yay! Photoshop for Mad Noobs. All right. So, give me a second. I'm still working out the technology of all this. Oh, there we go. Is that coming to you, Matt?
Yep, here we go.
Beautiful. Okay, so here I have this photo of Nathan. So to begin with, we'll talk about marquees. What do you think, Matt? Yeah? Yeah, marquees.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay, so you got your general marquees up here. Here are all of your selections. We have rectangular, elliptical, and single row marquees and single column marquees. So that can be accessed on your keyboard by using the M tool, that little thing, or the M shortcut key on your keyboard, and that crosses over both Mac and PC. And marquee is pretty much just selecting a, thing. You can move it around. Is the stream showing that well enough, Matt?
Yep, we can see it.
Cool. And with the marquee, when you hit the delete key, if you're using CS5, it'll come up, generally come up with, sometimes it won't, but just some options for what you can fill that with or anything like that. I'll go a bit more into that later. But tonight I think it's kind of important to talk about like the shortcut key, because we all know marquees. I don't know about you, Matt, like we all kind of use them and stuff like that, but there's some cool shortcut keys we can use. So if you hold down your shift key, for example, you'll get this perfectly constrained square. I don't know whether any of you have had the problem of where you want to kind of do it from the middle. So say we use an elliptical marquee, which is over here, elliptical marquee. You can also use Shift M to get to that and scroll through any of the options in your tool palette on the side. And say I want to select, the iris here. you can hold down Alt and Shift, and it'll do it from the center. It'll resize from the center instead of, if I usually do it, it'll start from the side. If you can see that, is that coming up, Matt? Hello, Matt.
Yep.
Yeah, there. Cool. Yay! Am I making
Yep.
sense? Is this going too fast for people here? But yeah. So that, I find
So
that.
essentially, what you have is you have Control, Shift, and Alt, which are modifier keys. So you have
Yeah.
your basic selection tool,
Yep.
and then they will modify the behavior of it.
Exactly. So with our so Alt, that will generally do like kind of subtract from your selection. So you can see I've just made a selection with the circle there, but when I hold down the Alt key, you can see I've just made a crescent sort of moon shape by doing another one, holding down Alt and doing another selection over the top. So it removed from our selection. If we go Shift, it'll add to our selection. So we can basically make a whole lot of selections together and just keep adding to that selection. Or if we hold down Alt and Shift, that'll sort of make you'll be able to drag out your marquee from the center. And that's just so handy for doing eyes, if we're working on eyes. So I'll show you kind of how, I guess I'll, do a quick sort of, so I'm just, just generally doing a marquee now, and it's a bit annoying because it'll stretch out from the edge. I'm holding down Shift and Alt, and now it's making a nice circle that I can put there. Another thing to remember when doing your selections, this is my favorite tool, is coming up to Refine Edge. And when you open the Refine Edge dialog, you'll find a whole heap of other cool bits and pieces and it's so worth sitting in here and playing with it. But my honest favorite is using the feather, just to feather the edges of your marquees after you've done your selection, and you can change the view mode as well. So you can, this is not actually affecting your canvas as such, it's just how you're able to see what it's being, what it's selecting at that point in time. I usually like to leave it on that one, but and then you go OK. And you'll find when you fill that area with something, I'll just make a new layer so it will actually fill. It will create a feather around that now after I've done the Refine Edge sort of stuff. So is that all making sense? I think so. I think I did all right there.
I think it's making sense.
I think it's making sense. So, and if you want to deselect your selection that you've just made, because you'll find sometimes that you'll select something, whoops, you'll select something and then you'll not want it selected anymore, and you go, how do I deselect that? Just Control D will deselect. So the next one that I think is really cool, that I like and I use fairly often and fairly roughly, I'm just going to get rid of that layer that I've just made. This is just for editing photos, is the Lassoe. And the Lassoe is really handy just for doing, for example, I think the side of his face is a bit dark, this side over here. So I'm just going to do a quick scribble, use my Refine Edge tool, and visually see where my feather's going. I'm actually dragging that out to 250 pix at the moment. And then I'm going to go Layer, New Adjustment Layer. We'll talk more about this later on. This is that non-destructive workflow stuff. But I can now, now I've done that rough selection, I can now sort of lighten and darken that side of his face.
So the Lassoe is for super rough,
yep,
like really quick, just grab this,
yep,
this part of the image, not really being too precise about it.
Yeah. And I find it works really well with the Refine Edge tool, because then I can visually see how I'm changing that Lassoe tool to look like, and I can see where it's going and stuff like that. So if you have a play on a photograph and with lightening and darkening areas, you'll find yourself kind of learning how far you can push that and what you can get away with. But I use the Lassoe tool all the time, and if you use the L key on your keyboard, which is how I mostly honestly select things, that will get you to your Lassoe tool. But the next handy one in the Lassoes is one that Matt and I like. Actually, we'll talk about that one a bit later, because that's in our.
This one's saved for the life-saving tips.
Yeah, this is saved for later. This is our favourite thing. Okay, over in our selections palette again, we have the quick select. Some people really like quick selection. I don't know how I feel about it. Sometimes some days I like it, some days I don't. What quick selection does is sort of selects a group of pixels depending on how much you have decided for it to choose. But it's basically where you can paint. All I'm doing right now is just holding down my mouse and letting it select its own thing. But it tries to select clusters of basically the same thing that I'm running the brush over. So it's essentially, that's why it's called quick select. It's, really good for if I wanted to, for example, brighten up his whole face, and it's just selected all instead. So sometimes you've got to be careful. It can do some funny things. But basically all I'm doing at the moment is just dragging that out, scribbling. It's just done a select all again. This is why it drives me crazy. Go slowly. And it's just accidentally selected.
So again, it's just for grabbing a whole bunch of pixels and then refining it.
Yeah, and there we go. I've just grabbed all of that. If you hold down the control key once you've made a selection, that means cut. So you'll then be able to, move things around and stuffs like that. Yeah, that's why that tool annoys me mostly, because it can be a bit finicky and a bit of a pain in the bum. I prefer the tool we're going to talk about later for this sort of stuff. But yeah, or the Lassoe tool, which is just as good because it's really quick and you just kind of go, yeah, I want the face, whatevs, cool, done. So yeah, and the thing that helps you make your selections and stuff like that, if you have the money to shell out, buy a graphics tablet. People hate me for saying this, but makes selecting stuff really easy. I don't know, Matt, how do you feel about that, being a game kind of guy?
In anything where I'm working with selections or layer masks and anything is just so much easier with a graphics tablet. It's more of a kind of tactile,
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess, like freeform way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels more like I'm scribbling on a page as opposed to just kind of sitting there with a mouse going, doing random grabs. So, yeah. The other one that can sometimes come in handy, and I say sometimes because it's one of those rare things that I don't particularly approve of, but is basically your magic wand tool, and that selects groups of pixels again. And that can be handy if you're using it in conjunction with your shift key. So you can see I'm just selecting groups of stuff at the moment using that key. The reason why this bothers me is it leaves out little pixels. So you can see there my marching ants are kind of, in some weird spots. So I don't tend to use it a lot. Instead of that, I would probably use select and then color range. This is a really, really sort of handy thing to use because you can select, for example, I may not like the greeny tone over on the side of his face, so I'm just going to select that or click on that, and it's showing me over here kind of spots. If we turn up the fuzziness, it shows me where those green bits are, and I can go OK, and then I can do something go layer, new adjustment layer, curves, and only edit those kind of greeny bits.
Yeah. So select color range is essentially like a magic wand tool, but over the entire image.
Yeah, it's over the entire image, and it selects a certain color, certain things within a color range, and fuzziness turns up how much within that color range you're picking up. So I picked up that green on the edge, and now I'm editing the green tones that are all like that green on the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I find myself using that heaps just for general color correction sort of stuff. It's great. I'm currently just taking some of the magenta out now, putting some magenta in, and taking some of that green out, and you can see sort of if it's helping, and if you can actually see on the live stream, it just a little bit of help. It's good. So yeah. How do we feel about that, Matt? I think we're almost done with that segment. I think we've nearly kind of done our
Did
thing.
we want to go through some of the other things in the select menu?
There's quick mask mode. Can I be honest? I don't like it. I'm not a big user of it, but so if Matt wants to talk a little bit about that, he's more than welcome.
No, I don't use quick mask mode either. I find the standard marching ants do the trick.
Yeah.
I was sort of more talking about the select modify menu.
Select, modify. Oh, these, I haven't actually used these much. These might be more in your, I use that when I'm talking